does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, to walk humbly with your God? Speak to you in the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. In 1969, amid a tumultuous political period, amid strife and fighting in the public square, was just a year after one of the worst years for the human race. And amidst the backdrop of their own decaying relationship, the breakdown leading up to the breakup of the world's greatest rock and roll band, the Beatles, Paul McCartney was looking for a hook to his master opus. You see, the Beatles were headed to the studio for the last time. They knew it, the engineers kind of knew it, the producers suspected it. They were just too fractured, too bifurcated, too different. And like so many times in their run, the Beatles both reflected popular culture and drove popular culture. So if the world was fractured, so were they. Over the previous year or so, John Lennon, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison had each threatened to quit, only to be coaxed back by Paul. And now it was Paul's turn. So the Beatles went into Abbey Road Studios to record the album dedicated to their process of creation, the album that would be called Abbey Road. Paul convinced his bandmates to focus on pure rock one more time, challenging them to come up with some of their greatest works. For the B side of the album, Paul put together a medley of half-finished songs, some 10 songs strewn together that worked together because they said it worked. The last song was to be called, fittingly, The End. In a final jam, Ringo gets a drum solo for the first and only time on a Beatles record. John, Paul, and George alternate guitar lead solos, and then it all collapses into a high A chord, lightly hit on the piano. Paul's humdinger was a line that summarized his own life view, his own sunny optimism, his own preaching from a pulpit, his own compass point whenever you lose your bearings. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. That was the Beatles' litmus test to see if you were living the life you were meant to live. Some 10,000 years earlier, prophet Micah, searching for his own humdinger to send to the masses. Micah lived in the 8th century BC, widely considered to be one of the strongest voices of prophetic vision in the Old Testament. That means that Micah is a book for those who strive for social justice. The book's biggest concerns are twofold: call to worship of God, not Alzheimer's, and to justice for the meek, the poor, the marginalized. And make no mistake, they are not mutually exclusive. And so it is fitting, and indeed intentional, that Micah's text, one of the Bible's greatest hits, one of the Bible's Come Together, or Here Comes the Sun, it is paired with one of another golden oldie, the Beatitudes. The beat of the Beatitudes, like the beat of the Beatles, is all about love, peace, and understanding if you look at it from a certain point of view. Blessed are you if you are poor in spirit, etc., etc. They are all calls to action, calls to be more like God. And in a political and a polemic climate, the one we are currently in, that call to action is all the more important. This is in many ways the hardest sermon I've ever had to preach. I was ordained a priest just over a year ago, and I have been feeling unease in the pit of my soul as I pass that anniversary. I find myself in need of a reboot, a revisit to that essential question that the Church, the Holy Scriptures, and the Lord asks of us. What kind of person do I want to be? And I need your help, body of The unspoken norm in many realms of the church, certainly here, is to avoid politics. I'm going to push back on that. And now I can sense tension in the room building. Here he goes. You can take the boy out of ultra-leftist California, but you can't take the ultra-leftist out of the Californian boy. Well, you're not. In a sense, when I took my ordination vows, I surrendered my voice to the fringes of political leanings. I pledged my life in the name of Christ to the middle ground, to the equity of all voices of God's creation. So I uphold that like Scripture is a symphony of various voices, the church is a tapestry of different opinions, political opinions, hopes and ideals. We are indeed red and blue, and we are neither. We are all God's children. And at the end of the day, no matter what this election has done to us, good or bad, we are here under one roof, taking one bread, one body, one Lord, one faith, one baptism. I would never take anyone to task for their political beliefs, and I hope you wouldn't do the same for me, no matter what you may assume. But I do take to task anyone who violates willingly his or her baptismal vows. That's where we go off the rails. I know of at least one classmate from seminary, an ordained priest, mind you, though it presumes a baptized Christian, who took to social media last week to say, we should not pray the president. Who also asked why the National Cathedral even allowed President Trump into the building for worship. Shame on that person. The answer is prayer. Always prayer. On Friday, our diocese held its annual convention, and there was an auspiciously timed forum about faith in the public square, featuring our own parishioner, Tucker Eskew, who knows a great deal about both subjects, faith and politics. One great question and equally great answer was posed to him. Was the Women's March on January 21st about expressing one's faith or about expressing one's partisan political beliefs? Tucker's answer was, yes. Mine too. Because they are intricately linked, no matter how much we try to ignore it. The Bishop of Atlanta, Bishop Wright, gave a lecture and a sermon too about these themes, particularly our common offertory call, a call to action from Paul in the letter to the Ephesians, walk in love. The theme for the convention, walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself for us, an offering and sacrifice to God. Walk in love, walk humbly with God. The theme is developing. The truth of the matter is we are in an unstable time of great transition. We are at a precipice where our extreme disagreements as a human race seem to be at odds. We are effectively without a compass. I choose these words carefully because I am trying desperately to walk that baptismal, ordinal, middle ground. I do not want to lose any of you, find something you disagree with or something you think you are hearing. I am merely in the midst of a big public square, the biggest public beltway, shining a light on our condition. Micah and Matthew beg us to remember the will of God and to remember the light of Christ in the world, as fractured as things may seem. For the prophets, justice is God breaking into the world to right the proverbial ship. Bishop Wright quoted Martin Luther King Jr., reminding us that justice is love, revolting against anything and everything that is not love. I ask myself, does what let someone say or do pass the Jesus test. So on the other end of the spectrum, when I watch the news unfold from the last 48 hours, I am not telling you what to think, how to vote. I am telling you to ask yourself, does it pass the Jesus test? Does it live up to our baptismal covenant? And ask, where is Jesus? Because for me right now, Jesus is stuck at the airport, unable to get through customs. Whether we find ourselves looking to Martin Luther King, President of the United States, Beatles, prophets like Micah, the Lord himself, let us remember to find our spiritual compass in this confusing world. Always, always ask yourself, does what he or she said or do, or does what he or she do pass the Jesus litmus test? For me, the love you take is equal to the love you make does a job pretty well. But so does everything Jesus was and is and stands for. So is God, who only asks of us to be united, to walk humbly with him, to strive for mercy and justice always, seeking and serving Christ in all persons. May we continue to come here, from all over the political spectrum, and model for the world what unity looks like, even if we disagree, as we worship together. May we continue to come here to be challenged, be affirmed, be filled, be loved. What does the Lord require but to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God? I speak to you in the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy